Hello, and welcome to Living Spark, a project of the Spark of Humanity Network, and graciously brought to you by Orca Media. I'm your host, Danielle O'Hallisey, and today we're going to be talking about practical approaches to, first of all, figuring out what this thing is we're talking about with the Living Spark. Yeah, the spark of humanity, and also ways that hopefully we can nurture and grow our own humanity and connect to the humanity of others. Or it could also have said, grow our own humanity by connecting to the humanity of others. Before I get started today, I'm going to do something I didn't do last time. I want to just read a little bit of the statement of principle that you can find on sparkofhumanity.net, and you can find some videos there, some writings. There is a forum if you want to post any questions or whatever. But yeah, I want to give you just a little bit of this so that we have some background, a shared vocabulary. In everyone, in each of us, there is a spark of humanity. Sometimes we are afraid that something might damage our spark. We are afraid that it might be out, but it can't be. Even though at times we are not feeling it, sometimes our sparks are defended, sometimes they're distorted, sometimes they're baffled, and sometimes all three. I'm going to leave off there. There's more to it, and we'll revisit that as we start future episodes. But the reason I wanted to give you that shared vocabulary is that I think I'm going to be talking quite a bit about the way that my spark of humanity is defended. I'll talk about it throughout this series. And that sometimes, I think that sometimes baffles me. Why do I want to talk about the things that are preventing me from feeling my spark and sharing it with others instead of just talking about good stuff? It's because sometimes I feel like you got to clear the underbrush to get through and see what's on the other side of it. Anyway, I've decided on a structure for these sessions that I'm going to give myself a homework assignment at the end of each broadcast. And then I will check in with you and talk about how well that has gone or hasn't gone over the previous week, 2 weeks. And I'm ready to have times that in the future I'm going to have to say, look, it didn't work, or I didn't find any value in what I tried to do there. But not this time, not this time. If you joined us last time, you'll know that I was talking about health problem I'm having. I'm not trying to get sympathy. I'm not trying to engage in self-pity. I'm just trying to set this up for you. I've been dealing with vertigo for a while now. I really don't know. A couple of months, maybe. I don't know. I've kind of lost track of time because there's not a whole lot you can do when you have a pretty serious case of vertigo. It's that feeling, because you haven't had it. People say, oh, dizziness. Well, not quite. It's a feeling like the world is spinning, like you're like seasickness. If you've ever had seasickness, it's that feeling, like the ship is rolling and you just can't figure out which way is up or down, left or right. And as I've been dealing with this, I began to remember that when I was a child, my father would talk about some of the symptoms he had. He had to stop working when I was about 10 years old, and he would talk to people about how he felt. And I had no context for it back then, and I didn't see any recognition on the faces of his friends or his relatives, our relatives. Um, but I'm now realizing that my father suffered from vertigo. And through this being so difficult for me, and I mean day 3, the holidays were coming up, and I was already in tears because I was beginning to realize that it's a little better now than it was then, but that I wasn't going to be able to drive, so I wasn't going to be able to go visit people very much for the holidays. I was already feeling sad about it, feeling let down about the whole thing. And that was when I started to realize, no, Dad had this, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that not only did he have vertigo, but his doctors didn't recognize it. And the treatments that are now available, I'm working through it with different specialists, and I'm confident that it will get thoroughly contained. But these treatments didn't exist back then. In fact, his general practitioner and even specialists that he saw, none of them recognized the symptoms and put the label vertigo on it. My dad lived with this for about 25 years, 25 years. I can't imagine how he did it, how he lived his life. And I'm retelling the story I did last week, hopefully a little bit more succinctly. But he he gave up toward the end of his life. He just gave up. Multiple people have told me this, that um, yeah, your dad would seem like he was doing okay, and then he just gave up. He told us that he gave up, and it wasn't long before he had passed away. And like most kids who lose their parents and think their parents could have done something about it, we'll revisit that idea in a few minutes. But like most kids that go through that, um, I was kind of angry, disappointed, and have struggled with that for a very long time. And all of a sudden, the feeling I had that my dad was a failure, had let me down, had let his family down, has been completely flipped. I've suddenly realized that my dad was like a superhero to live with this for 20 or 25 years. It absolutely blows my mind that he was able to do that. So my homework assignment, after that long introduction, my homework assignment for myself was to think about whether there were other people in my life that I was doing the same thing. And I didn't have to look very far from my dad to realize that I was doing a similar thing to my sister, um, that I was feeling somewhat disappointed in her, somewhat challenged in my feelings for her, my sense of her. My sister and I came from a similar religious background, and we both have maintained a strong sense of connection with our spiritual lives. She has gone, I would say she's taken a hard right. She would say I've taken a hard left. And we have tended not to, there have been some big challenges. I have mentioned I am a transgender woman. If you don't know what that is, it means that I was born male appearing and have gone through transition. And my sister was very not okay with that and brought a lot of difficulties into my life. But that was half a lifetime ago. That was back in the 1990s. And we have since patched up things, kind of. We don't talk often, but when we do, we talk about our childhood. We talk about things that we both love. We talk about things that we share in terms of our spiritual existence. I have had the challenge, and it's been a good challenge for me because I want to dismiss her. I want to get even with her for making my life difficult. There were a lot of details I'm not going to share. Back when I was transitioning, was going through a very vulnerable time. But she's a really good person. She's a very good person. I cannot help but admire the good that she does in the world. I can't help but admire her. So therefore, that challenge has been really good for me along the line. Now, we haven't talked most of last year, and it was because of the election and our differing views. And I think we each get to credit ourselves with wanting to avoid any conflict. So that's something anyway. But yeah, as time has gone on, I finally, because of this challenge, this homework assignment I gave her a call a few days ago, and we had such a delightful conversation. It was really beautiful, and I truly enjoyed spending that time with her and reminding myself of our shared connection as siblings, but also our shared humanity. So there we go. Now, yeah, the topic of this week. I do jump right into things, don't I? The topic for this time continues that idea of defendedness, the way that, as I said, I haven't wanted to forgive my sister for stuff that happened like 30 years ago. I haven't wanted to let it go. And I haven't wanted to make myself vulnerable to her. Um, the current topic is blame. And no, it's not about a family member this time. I'm going to tell you how it came up. I mentioned the last time, the last broadcast, that the huge wildfires were taking place. Some of them were getting contained here in Southern California at that time, and that has just affected everyone. I mean, you invariably will know people who either know someone else who lost their homes or they had to evacuate. I have a bad heart condition, and there was a lot of smoke, and it's that kind of smoke that comes from our very unnatural environment burning up. And so it was very difficult for me and for other people I know. I live in a senior retirement community, blah, blah, blah. And people around me are vulnerable to the smoke. And so, I saw a lot of the effects, some of the lesser ones, some of the major ones among people that I knew. And since that, I've been thinking a lot about the fact that everyone seems to want to know who to blame. I keep seeing articles, I keep seeing opinion pieces, I keep seeing YouTube posts, Facebook posts. Who is to blame? Who is to blame? And you have the people on one side of the political fence, and unfortunately, we've got a brick wall running through our culture, it seems. So you got people on one side saying, well, the others are protecting the environment, but they're not really, because they're not, allowing the brush to be cut in the forests, and that allows fire to travel faster. Well, no, no, no. It's climate change is causing the winds to be worse. The Santa Ana winds were in fact record speed and intensity, and that of course spreads fire. I've heard it back and forth. There wasn't enough water because of this group. There wasn't enough water because the climate change, which I agree with both. Like, here's the radical thing I want to propose before I go any further with this, is that I agree with all of that, or at least I agree that all of it is worthy of our attention. I'm sorry, I have a cat that she wants to join us. This is Momo, and she will be in and out of these broadcasts because that's how my life goes. Um, but anyway, yeah, so I've watched stuff from both sides. I've watched people who are really lucid, clear, understanding. They talk about cutting the underbrush, and you know what? You like, yeah, I was in England a few years ago, driving along like close to major population centers. There are sheep grazing, and those sheep are grazing to keep the brush down so that if there's a fire, it doesn't spread into the populated areas. I'm told that in France, that there are goats doing the same job. So we've had a more recent policy, it seems. I don't know a lot about it, but it seems that we've been a little more concerned about protecting wildlife and wildlife habitat from some people's perspective than we have been keeping the brush cut. There are so many examples. I'm just saying blame. Like, we polarize around things and we blame whoever we see on the other side of the wall from us. We seem to need that. We seem to crave it. And it seems to be a blockade in ourselves that keeps us from experiencing other people's humanity, spark of humanity. It seems to keep us from sharing our spark of humanity, and it seems to keep it from, on a practical level, we're not talking about that. Now, I have promised that I will not turn any of these broadcasts into political statements. And what I'm trying to do by mentioning the politicization of that particular issue is my internal task for myself is to learn to get beyond my own political biases and to depoliticize, if possible, for anyone else and for myself, some of these topics. So it's tricky. It's tricky terrain, but there we go. Now, I've also been thinking about about blame in the sense of health, like healthcare. Yeah. That's a political topic. Maybe it's also something that affects every one of us at different times in our lives. But our health, like I don't know if you've ever experienced this. Someone will say, "So and so has cancer," and people kind of lean in. And, well, do they smoke? Are they smoke? Are they like somebody has a heart attack? Are they obese? Are they fat? Like we have this. I think it's a defense mechanism that we've really overly honed, overly sharpened. We want to we want to be able to blame some behavior, some irresponsibility that that person has had on how their fortune has turned so badly. We want to somehow protect ourselves from the very real possibility and inevitability that we are going to get sick, we're going to age, we're going to die. We want to hide from that, and so we want to know, like, what did that person do that I'm not doing, and therefore I know that I'm safe right now. Um, yeah, we do a lot of that. I've gone through some other health challenges, and I've watched others do that with me. I've also watched doctors say in reports untruly and in direct contradiction to what I had displayed and had told them in a report, saying that I was obese, chronic smoker. I've never smoked. And an alcoholic, used lots of street drugs. I've seen all this in doctors' reports about myself. It doesn't matter that I'm being defensive when I'm saying it isn't true, but kind of doesn't matter. Like it seems that the untruth was centered around trying to place the responsibility for my ill health on my choices, so that therefore, I don't know, the doctor, other people, I don't know who's going to read the report, but that people could somehow back away and go, oh, okay, you brought it on yourself. So, so there we go. Um, yeah. So another situation that came up in which blame played a role. I'm doing this thing. As far as I can see, there are not a lot of people watching this. I would love to have people tuning in when I'm doing the live stream and ask some questions and talk. But you know, I'm doing this to practice this spark of humanity thing. I'm doing this to try to grow as a human being. And so I'm challenging myself. And I think if I weren't doing the broadcast, I would be doing what I did a year ago when I first found out about this. I'd be doing a little bit of it, but I wouldn't push myself too hard. Um, but a few days ago, I was leaving the grocery store, and there was a guy sitting in front of it. It's very unusual in my community that this would happen, but this guy was sitting there, looked very down on his luck, very down on his luck, and he had a sign, kind of the typical thing that people put out when they're looking for a little help. I've lost my home. I've lost my job. I've lost my family. And can you please help? He had this thing, and he said it. And I did what everyone else did. I walked right past him. I walked past him. He made me uncomfortable. In fact, there was a little bit of blame right then that I wasn't very happy that this guy was making me uncomfortable. Um, I I I unfortunately I'm doing this spark of humanity thing. So I had to ask myself, like, what's that all about? Like, you know, wouldn't it have been easy to reach into your pocket and throw a dollar or a couple of quarters, like something into his jar, and then walk away, so that there was some kind of just some kind of relief for whatever I was feeling. It wasn't guilt. It was discomfort, which I maybe shouldn't be too proud of, but that is the case. Um, as I walked to my car, I started thinking about all of the things that I was blaming. I was blaming. Look at this guy. Maybe, if I gave him money, he'd probably go into the store and buy beer or buy something to drink, or, maybe he lost his family, all these things because he's a weak-willed addict of some kind, or he's harmed someone and he's ended up down on his luck. I was doing all the narratives, but unfortunately for me, I couldn't hide behind them again because this living spark thing requires that I have something to talk about, and it kind of means I have to at least challenge these things I'm doing that are blocking my spark. So yeah, I put the groceries in the car. I walked my cart back and I walked over to him. I had carefully counted what I had in my pocket and I thought, yeah, I got $3 bills here. I'm going to give that to him. That's a way that we defend our vulnerability, which is how I often think of Spark of Humanity. I protect myself from my vulnerability by being a kind of pro forma generosity, like a generous, like giving something material and walking away. So I walked over to him and I handed him the $3 and I turned to walk away and I thought, I still haven't done it. I don't think I've ever realized that before. That and that was miserly generosity on my part, $3, but like that I've often given to a cause just so I won't feel uncomfortable anymore. And I called myself on it and I stopped and I looked at him and I said, "You're having a rough time, aren't you?" And he didn't want to look at me, like he looked ashamed, he looked embarrassed. And I said what we say. Take care of yourself. And I started walking away. Take care of yourself. Guy who has no job, no prospects, no car, no family. Yeah, I've just given you a fortune, $3. By the way, the camera is rocking because again, the cat is very much involved in my life right now. Anyway, so yeah, the game, the taking away of the game for me was keep challenging myself. Where is my spark? Where is my humanity? Where is his? And so I said, I just laughed and I said, well, of course you can't just take care of yourself. It's hard, isn't it? And we looked at each other and I said, I don't know what else to do for you, but I really hope things get better. I thought about the words of the Dalai Lama, who, in case you don't know this, apart from being the head of Tibetan Buddhism, he's also written a lot of things about secular compassion. He's got a book called Beyond Religion that I just highly recommend because he talks about us as human beings. He talks about this very topic. And I was thinking about how he asks us to think about the fact that we and all other human beings want to be happy. We don't want to suffer, et cetera, et cetera. There are so many things that we share with other people. And here's the moment that just overwhelmed me. And I don't know how it affected this guy in front of the grocery store. I don't know if it affected him like it did me, but I suddenly knew that he and I we were equal. I guess in the language of the Spark of Humanity project, we shared our sparks, and for me at least, um, I experienced a moment of growth, of vulnerability, of growth. Yeah. So I'm going to look for the next 2 weeks, my homework assignment, and if anyone watches this and wants to challenge themselves to do the same thing, I would love for you to do it. I'd love to hear from you. Sparkofhumanity.net. We're also Orca Media on YouTube, Orca Media dot whatever. We're all over the place. We're almost too many places to keep track of us. I'd love to hear from you. My homework assignment is going to be to look for ways that I hide my own vulnerability, my spark of humanity behind blame, blaming myself, blaming others, blame. And then report on it in a couple of weeks. Won't that be fun? Anyway, we're running out of time. I want to thank Zach and the other kids over there at Orca Media. They're not kids, they're wonderful human beings. And I want to thank you for joining us. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care. Bye. So that was fun. I'm trying to find my way with this thing, in case you can't tell. And I really appreciate you guys a lot. Anyway, I will see you in a couple of weeks. And in case you're looking for it,